What is up, fam bam? David Fraga here. Thank you guys for clicking on this video. So real quick, I'd love to share with you guys on how to have a creative mindset. Yes. So I would like to talk about the ABCs of this, kind of something that I've pieced together, over the past few days, past few weeks, and it's something that's just been on my mind. So I would like to say this first, though. When being creative, right, or creating something, there is always usually an aspect of telling people what they want to hear at times, or maybe trying to connect with people, right? So instead of actually trying to dig beneath the surface. And Stephen Furtick actually said this best, and I was listening to one of these podcasts with Craig Rochelle, a leadership podcast that he has, and he was mentioning with Stephen, Pastor Furtick, that being creative is a lot like breaking into a safe. That it takes a lot of time, it's a lot of effort, a lot of hard work, but you're still kind of generating different ideas of how to get in there, and then all of a sudden, boom, you can get in the safe, and once you get in the safe, you can get as much as content you want. Whatever is inside is all yours to use and steward, right? So I thought that was a great illustration, and I just wanted to share that with you guys, right? Now, a lot of times, the creativity can be sparked from limited resources or from situations that may not be ideal, right? So Craig Rochelle actually talks about how innovation usually is sparked more often when there's limited resources. In other words, maybe you need for example, to fix a material or a broken item in your home, right? You're like, well, man, I don't want to pay the full price to get a new one or a new piece, but maybe I can use duct tape and maybe I can find some wood to replace a peg on a leg on a chair or something like that, right? So that's kind of innovative, right? Now, I'm not suggesting you use duct tape and a piece of wood that you find randomly, but the thought of okay, so what do I have, resources that I can actually implement and use in order to fix a problem and bring a solution to a problem. Like I said before, problems are opportunities, right? That's part of that creative mindset. Now, going through these ABCs, I'm going to go through them real quick. A is always be collecting. B is being the audience. C is coach it through. Now, what I mean by the A, always be collecting, even sucky starts are okay. So a lot of times we try to tell our ideas and we don't show them. We don't see how they could, potentially be something, right? And we don't put it on paper and we don't just try to go through it, right? But be willing to put something out. You never know what that idea can lead to. And a lot of times you see it throughout history that a bad idea, or maybe someone thought of an idea or something like that, and then another bad idea put together actually made something great. And that is something that, man, it could create something amazing, right? But that's part of the risk. That's part of taking that step of faith, right? Now, all that to say is that those ideas should not be held too tightly. That the best ideas a lot of times when creating content or when creating songs, I've talked to a lot of songwriters, a lot of times it's just with open hands. And when they're with a group of people, maybe they start singing some lyrics and they're like, oh, dude, that'd be great, but what if you tried this instead? It's like, oh, okay, yeah. And you put it together and now it's a beautiful song. It's a beautiful rhythm, right? There's a flow to it, right? So that is one of the biggest things that I've been learning and listening, to not feel like you have to control the process of collecting, right? So it's the second thing is being the audience. So kind of like what I was mentioning earlier is playing out the scenarios, play through the scenarios and maybe see where the idea has potential and then empower it. That means maybe start putting a little bit more time, maybe start to see how other people can contribute to that, right? And when you're able to be the audience, then you're able to share that. So when you're sharing that, that means the next step, which is C, step number 3, coach it through, which means evolve it. When you're sharing it, you're bouncing off ideas of people. It's going to evolve, not just that, but actually implement that new stuff, that new content, whatever you're learning, right? And one of the coolest things that I've been learning about entrepreneurship is that the more you share and the more you talk and interact about maybe a vision you have or an idea, the more it evolves, the more it grows, and the more it gets better, right? All that to say that very rarely when I talk to a lot of these successful entrepreneurs or real estate people or whoever, pastors, very rarely does their original idea actually pan out to the way they actually thought it would play out in their head, right? And that's okay. That's why I say, and letter B, with don't hold on to your ideas too tightly, but with open hands, right? And see where it goes. Let it be free. Let it have freedom with boundaries, right? So the coolest thing that I started listening to a lot of on the leadership podcast and a lot of other podcasts and books I've been reading through is this quote. And it says, the best part of life is that we have the ability to make choices, right? And we have the freedom to be ourselves, do what we love. Finally, we have the freedom to live out Christ through our callings and etc. So I think that's a beautiful quote. I think that's amazing because the part where it says, do what we love. When you're doing what you love, often you lose track of time. You're just giving all you got, whatever it is. You start to spark innovation because you're like, I just need the minimum to get this going, right? And I know for me, when I started playing soccer, I was like, I don't even need cleats. I don't need goals. I don't need anything. I just need a ball, right? And I think I started playing with volleyball or basketball or something like that, juggling, right? When I was a kid. And I was like, man, I just love this. This is all I need. And eventually, over time, when you keep pursuing that, when you keep getting better, you start getting the cleats, you start getting the goals, you start getting all the good stuff. And then, down the road, 18 years later for me, I played in college. And so that was something that was a dream of mine. That was something that, I pursued as a young kid, not knowing where it would take me, but I just kept being persistent and consistent. So creativity has a lot to do with consistency and being diligent with an idea, but also holding loosely to those ideas and continue to see where it works through, where it goes, and doing what you love, right? Not just that, but being yourself through the whole process. And be like, you know what, this was a great idea, but maybe I need to change it. And not just tweak it, but actually change it, evolve it, and see where it goes. Maybe put some steps in there that I'm missing, the gaps, the canyons in there, right? And then start creating these stones, as I'm crossing across a creek or as I'm going to the next step. So that is all I want to share with you guys of how to have a creative mindset. Some thoughts there, but for me, how I usually get in a creative, zone is, it's usually in the afternoon after I get my workout in the morning, after I get my quiet time in the morning and some reading. So probably around noonish, all the way to 2 or 3 is my creative time. That's when my mind is most alert, and that's when I'm just usually just okay, I have a white marker board, a big one, right? Big one. And I start writing down some ideas about maybe some content for the week and be like, okay, this is cool. Maybe start typing out some things, maybe researching some things. I'm like, you know what, this is great. And then throughout that week, I would send a text to 1 or 2 of my mentors, be like, hey, what do you think about this topic? And I would ask questions about it. And be like, okay, so for example, this past week, I was asking my brother and then another mentor, what management is, because is management a good thing or is it a bad thing, right? Or should we be able to delegate or empower, or what is management, because it has a good connotation or a bad connotation. We have degrees that say business management, right? So just things like that. And it's amazing when you get the feedback, because then you start to think about it more in depth. It's a lot more underneath the surface, like I said in the beginning. All that to say that the best thing for me also is to be alone in my room, have a little sunlight coming in, maybe some light music. I like to put some Odessa. That's really what my jam is right now. So all I'd say, guys, I hope this helps. I hope you use these things, implement them, and walk through them. Much love, guys.